everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would talk about what I have read in 2024. I have changed my reading goal for 2024. I changed it actually, I think 2 months ago. I don't think I've actually shared with you guys. So originally my goal was to try and read a book a week. So my original goal was 52 books in 2024. It came to September and I had only read like 17 books at that point. So I changed my reading goal to 20. I think last year I only read 8 books. So the fact that I've already doubled that is, pretty impressive. So I'm gonna try maybe next year to get even better. What I failed at this year is that I had a massive gap between June and September where I kind of got into a reading flunk and didn't really read very much, or didn't read as regularly, and I didn't finish a book during that time period. I don't really know why. I think it was because it was the summertime and I really struggled to stay indoors and read. And my reading time before that, when I was reading in the colder months, usually used to be like just after I finished work. But then in the summer, I would use that time to go out for runs or go out and go for walks and just enjoy the warmth instead of staying inside. So I kind of fell off the bandwagon just a little bit. Some of them are physical and they are on my shelf behind me. Some of them were on my Kindle, which I don't have on me at the moment. Some of them were audiobooks, so I don't have them physically either. But I thought I would walk you through what I've read in 2024 so far, and my reading goal, and what I'm expecting to finish by the end of this year to round it up to the end. So I don't think I'm going to read more than 20 books this year. I just don't think that's going to be viable. But I don't know, I am changing some things up with my lifestyle, which you'll be seeing probably in a couple of weeks. So maybe I'll have more time to read if I do make a positive change and actually continue doing this outside of just filming the video. So we will see. So I've got the list. I have it all on my Goodreads. So I've got the list here and we're good to go. So the first book of 2024 I read was The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, which I do own. Do I own? Oh, I do. It's actually a book that was a childhood book of mine. I don't actually think it was mine. Usually there's like a thing saying marshes, but there isn't in this one actually. I had this on my bookshelf in my bedroom for so many years and I never picked it up. Or I must have picked it up, but I don't really remember it. When I read this at the beginning of the year, I honestly couldn't remember reading any of it. But I must have been so young or just not with it to kind of like take it in. And it is a bit of a different book because it's kind of written not how you would think it would be written. It had like it was just a little bit different, I think. So I actually took this from my parents to read it and I haven't actually given it back yet. So it's still in my collection. It's still on my mind that I need to actually give it back to them because it's not technically mine. Oh, by the way, that was by Mark Haddon. I should probably mention that. And I gave The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime 3 stars. Just not my favourite. It was okay. So I gave it 3 stars. The next book I read was The Book of Lost Names by Kristin Harmel. I actually really enjoyed this book. This book was based in the Second World War, or the first? I think it was the second, when the Nazis invaded Germany. And she was one of the ones who was a Jew, and she basically recorded all of the names of these children who had to escape, and they changed their names so that they couldn't be found. And she had recorded all the books, all the names in a book. The ending was a huge letdown for me. I was very disappointed in the ending, and I did find the book overall a little bit cheesy and kind of a bit like, why did this happen? Like, it just was written in a very obvious, like, fanficky way, and it didn't really work. Well, it didn't really work for me personally. I wasn't happy with the choices that the main character made, and then the ending was just like, how? I'm not going to spoil it, obviously, but the ending, I was just like, really? I did give this a 4-star rating simply because I did honestly really enjoy the book, but the hows and the whys and the silliness of it sometimes, like the stupidity of the main character, did knock it down 1 star. So it would have been 5, but it is a 4, unfortunately. Then I decided to go back in time and read Charlotte's Web because I've honestly heard of the book and I've never read it. So I thought I'll read it, and I've watched the film, and I was intrigued to see what the book was like. And the book, again, was quite good. I gave this one a 4 stars as well, simply because, I don't know, it's a children's book and I'm not a child, but I don't know, there was like some of it that I just didn't really enjoy. That was by Evie White, Charlotte Web was. And then I read The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, which is the 4th Hercule Poirot book by Agatha Christie. I always actually forget that Agatha Christie is not a character, she's an actual author. I always forget this situation. But I absolutely love Agatha Christie books. So I'm not one who likes thrillers, I'm not someone who likes like scary films or books and things like that, but I do love like a book like this where it's kind of like not too bad. I did give this book a 5 stars because I really loved it and I didn't put the book down. So that was the 4th book I read in 2024. Then I completed 100 Years of Solitude. I'm fairly certain, did I even start this in this year? I'm not even too sure, but this was a really difficult book to read. And it's by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. It's a very, very, very confusing book where everyone has the same name and there are multiple different generations of the family, and you kind of don't know, or you take a little bit to kind of figure out which one you're following. And each chapter, it kind of follows a different person, but it's also interlinked. It's very, very confusing, but it was a long book, but I actually really enjoyed it in the end of it. It was a hard read, but an enjoyable read, but I did give it a 3 stars just because I found it so difficult to read. And then there was Yellow Face by R.F. Kuang, which was when a famous author died and then her bestie took her work and released it as her own. And then it just kind of follows through people finding out that she didn't really write it and just that whole downfall. And I gave it a 3 stars. I found it a little bit fanficky again. I just kind of didn't dwell with it quite well. The writing was a little bit different because obviously it included like social media and stuff in it, and I don't know, usually I'm okay with that, but this time around I didn't really sit with it well. Then I went back in time again to The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. I had never read the book, but I've seen the film a million and one times. I've seen Wicked on stage a few times. Obviously, the Wicked movie's coming out quite soon, or is already out, I'm not too sure. And so I wanted to read The Wizard of Oz, and so I did. And I thoroughly enjoyed this. This was a 5-star book for me, and I like the subtle differences that I realised were different from the film to the book. Like there's things like the silver slippers and like just certain aspects that were slightly different between the book and the film. But I still really enjoyed it. Then I remember reading this because The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde, which is a play. It was a script, which I did not know going into it. I did not realize it was a script of a play until I started reading it. I read it all in one sitting when I was in Amsterdam back in April, and I remember sitting there and my mum was able to like know certain terms and like phrases that were said in the book, which I'd never read it. I'd never seen the play, but my mum and dad have seen the play. Again, I actually enjoyed that one. I found it quite funny, and I gave this one a 5 stars too. It was quite short, but you know, you gotta have like a nice little short one every once in a while. So those are all books that were on my Kindle, by the way, which is why I've not shown you them. Then we have Lessons in Chemistry, which I got for Christmas last year, which is here, Lessons in Chemistry. It was also my first foray into tabbing books, and I really enjoyed this book. I tried watching the Apple TV show. I didn't really enjoy it as much as the book, but I have thoroughly enjoyed the book. It took me a few months until I actually started reading it, obviously December up until I think May when I read this. Yeah, this was not what you expected it to be at all. I read the title, I'd seen it advertised everywhere, but I just thought it was gonna be, you know, sciencey. I mean, it is a little bit sciencey, but it's completely different, and I was hooked to this book. I loved the characters, I loved the main character, and it just shows truly what it was like as a woman in like the 1950s. And that is a book that my sister-in-law and my mum had both read, so they then gave it to me to read as well because they enjoyed it so much. So I like when that happens. So that was a 5-star book. Then on my Kindle again, I read The Giver, the first one. I think there's like 4 books in the Giver series by Lois Lowry, who is a well-known author. Lois or Louis, I don't know. L-O-I-S, Lois, like Lois Lane. Lois Lowry. This one I gave a 5 stars to as well. It was I think where it was like not a dystopian world, but a world where everyone was managed by pills and like their minds were like altered, and it was kind of like they had no thoughts apart from this one guy who was given the gift of the giver, and he could then kind of hear all these thoughts and things and then escape to like the real world. I don't know, it was a very weird book, but I enjoyed it, so I gave it a 5 stars. Alright, then I read Animal Farm by George Orwell, and I actually didn't like this book very much. I know it's meant to be like his thoughts on people like in the war, and like characters were based off of real people. It was, I don't know, too political for me, and I kind of looked into it after I read it, and like the things were said in it compared to what was really said and all that stuff. I did give it a 2 stars. I do own it though. And I was going to start tabbing it, and then I gave up because I was like, I'm not too sure I vibe with this. But this also had it has selected essays in it, which I did not read. I only read the Animal Farm section of it. I didn't read any of the essays because I could not be bothered. Okay, my favourite book that I have read this entire year was and still is The Phantom of the Opera. This bad boy here, which I have all of these notes for, which I probably could add more of, but I absolutely love this. I've never seen the musical, which is insane because I am a musical lover. I've never seen the musical, but this I fell in love with reading and I could not put it down. And it's made me itching to watch the musical. I've seen or I've heard the music and I've seen, like, you know, certain clips of certain performances, but never seen the whole musical altogether. The whole thing, the whole shebang. Absolutely loved it. It's my favourite. And I still think about this book to this day and like what happened in it. And yeah, I mean, even though it's well known, it was unknown to me. But yeah, beautiful. Then I read a couple of audiobooks. So I actually read the Jeanette McCurdy autobiography of I'm Glad My Mum Died, and I read the audiobook which had her voicing it, her reading her entire book, and it was eye-opening, like what she had to go through, and it kind of shows that side of the showbiz and how some parents are, and I can totally see why she was glad her mum died. And kind of a sad story, I would say. Like, she was only a teenager thrust into the Disney world, and she did not do well. Well, I mean, she wasn't doing well. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed that book. I gave that 5 stars, and I listened to it all in one sitting, like whilst I was working. And yeah, I listened to Tom Felton's book, which is Beyond the Wand, The Magic and Mayhem of Growing Up a Wizard, which was also very, very eye-opening and talked a lot about alcoholism and what he went through, and like how he went down the bad path, which I actually had no idea. I had no idea that this actually happened to him. So this was also like really eye-opening. I'm realizing I'm like hitting this. Let's move you up. There you go. Yeah, I realized that I had no idea, and I followed Tom Felton on social media for years, and I had no idea that this was his life. It was really, really good read, and yeah. So those are two, I think they're the only 2 non-fiction books I've read this year, but they were really, really fascinating, and I do love a little autobiography here and there when I know it's actually them writing it. I don't like it when it's fake writing it, when someone else writes the book for you. Then I read The 7 Sisters by Lucinda Riley, which is actually the series I'm currently reading through. So it was this book here, The 7 Sisters by Lucinda Riley, which I'm actually really, really, really loving the series. I'm only on the 3rd book, and I've been on the 3rd book for a couple of months because I have been slacking on reading. But this series, honestly, is amazing. Like, each sister is a different character, and each book follows a different sister. And then there's also an 8th book where it follows the dad, and basically each sister, when their dad dies, is given a little bit of information about where they came from, because they were all adopted, and they all go each individually onto their own journey to find out where they came from. And it's an honestly amazing book because they're kind of all linked together. So it's ideal really to read them in order, because otherwise there's like certain links to different characters that don't make sense if you read them out of order. So I have the first 7 books. I need to buy the 8th book to make it complete. But yeah, absolutely loving this series. I gave this one a 5 stars, of course. This is the first in the series, of course. And I think they go in age order from oldest to youngest, so this is the oldest one. And yeah, it's kind of fun because it is like a dual timeline where it follows the main character, and then the second timeline follows her their ancestors, and kind of explains their history and how they came to be. But the also fun part about it is that they kind of incorporate true real life events, such as like the Seven Sisters. This one, spoiler, a little bit of a spoiler, this is based around when the Christ the Redeemer was built, and it has like real characters who were part of the Christ the Redeemer build, but also has fictional characters alongside them. So it's kind of like a play, it's kind of like a little fun around that. And how she has made these work is just phenomenal. Absolutely loving it. Like the current book I'm reading, which is not in any of this list, like honestly features like Beatrix Potter and like the King of England at the time, which was insane. Anyway, so then after that I listened to another audiobook, because I found out that Spotify has audiobooks now, and you have like 12 hours each month if you don't increase your payment. So I then read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I listened to that whilst I was working. I didn't really get on with that book. I found it, I don't know if it's because it was an audiobook, maybe it would be better if I actually read it as a book, but I found the audiobook really difficult to follow, and I just didn't like the storyline. So I don't know if I like missed important points because I was working and then I zoned in and out, but yeah, not my favourite. And I don't know, maybe I'll see if I'll read the actual book and see if I like it more that way, and like what did I miss that made me hate it. I read The Storm Sister, which is the second book in the Seven Sisters series. This one was also a really, really good one. I actually enjoyed this one a lot. It was very, very heartbreaking. Like, I cried a lot reading this. Like, it felt like every single page something awful happened to the main characters, and it got me hooked. I was hook, line and sinker with this one. This was an instant 5-star for me. Couldn't get me away from it, and I'm halfway through the third book now, so I think that one, if I could even make it go even higher than a 5-star, would be it. It's my favourite one so far, so I'm looking forward to finishing the third book of this series and then continuing on with the rest of the series as well. I just need to find more time to read, guys, which I'm hopefully going to try and do in the near future. Okay, I think that's every book that I own. Yes. Then the final book that I have completed as of 2024 has been Daisy Jones and the Six. I have read the book. I read the book actually last year and I absolutely loved it. Went straight ahead and watched the TV show on Amazon Prime, binged it from start to finish with no breaks. Absolutely loved that series. Phenomenal acting, phenomenal songs, and just seeing the book come to light into the TV series was great. Like, I kind of read the book as I was watching. So good. Then I had heard that the audiobook is even better because it's literally like an interview style. Like, the whole book is written in an interview style, like a script, like you're reading from a magazine or a newspaper. And they had the audiobook be each individual character as a different actor, or an actor for each character. And it made it just sound so much more real and realistic, and I absolutely loved it. So that was also a 5-star for me. I already loved it beforehand, and so this was, an even better one. And that is it. That is what I have read for 2024. So that's 18 books in total. And I would like to read 2 more to add up to 20 books. And my history of my Goodreads, this is not my best. Back in 2020 when I was furloughed, I did read 40 books in 1 year. So yeah, this year 20 books. Next year I'm gonna not try and force myself to do 52 books again, but I think I'm still going to aim higher than 20. If I do finish 20 books this year, if I don't finish 20 books this year, then it'll be 20 books next year. But we're 2 away, and I reckon I could do it. I just need to find more time to sit down and read, especially given the fact that 2 of the books I'm currently reading are really, really long books, and books that I keep on falling asleep reading. And then the other book is just a book that I'm loving so much that I don't want to finish so fast, so I'm kind of like spreading it out. It's the 3rd Seven Sisters book. We will see how we go. Anyway, that is it. That is what I've been reading for 2024. I would like some recommendations. Although my to be read book list, 225 books on my want to read or to be read book list. And I don't know, I'm always open to adding more books to my to be read list. It's just always going to go higher. It's never going low. I want to read a lot more classic books, like from way back then, like a lot of Shakespeare. I'd love to read Shakespeare, Dickens, a lot more Agatha Christie stuff. Like more Sherlock Holmes stuff, and yeah, just a lot more classics like Jane Austen books and like Emily Bronte books, and yeah, just all the things. So that is my aim, I think, for 2025. I could just easily just get lost in reading current books and just never pick up old books. So that is the plan. That is my video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them. I will see you guys on my next video next week. Bye guys. Meow meow.